What's going on, guys? Kaiger here. Already did the Lancer guide. Today I'm going to be doing my updated Scholar guide. It's going to include Priest and Judge for PvP and PvE, including what fairies to bring, skill rotations, things like this. Let's jump into it. Alright, so starting with class advancement, as I said in the other video, you want to shoot directly for one T4, then bring up the other T4, then either go for the T5s or start bringing up the T4s of your other class. So for over here, for the offensive side, if you're doing Judge or just an offensive class that is using Priest as a subclass, Judge T4 attack percent and damage increase percent is a pretty huge buff. If you're using Priest as a defensive class, just for buffs, just for the shield, things like this, then Priest T4 is really good. Damage reduction and HP percent. I believe most people, even the defensive people, should be going for Judge T4 first, just because this is going to give you PvE damage as well. This is definitely great, but it should be your secondary. Now, once you hit this point, I do believe you should go back and do the T4s of your secondary class. But once you come back and it's time to go for T5s, Priest T5 giving attack percent and flat tenacity is really, really good. Both stats you're always going to want. And then over here, Judge, flat break and HP percent is kind of a swap from the T4 Judge and Priest, where it was offense defense. Now it's kind of defense offense, but Priest wants the attack because their buff gives you percentage more attack, and Judge wants break, as we'll see from the abilities, because their skills work off of break. Now, talking about skills, Judge is probably the most interesting class in the game, just because there's so many options available to you. This is primarily based on the passive Verdict that lets you do a purple version of your skill that's generally bigger and does something additional once you use 4 Judge skills. That means generally you're going to be pushed towards doing just the regular 4 Judge skills, but you do have options. If you want to be a supportive role, you can always bring the heal Pious Light. You can also, if you want to be a damage dealer, but you don't like the slow nature of Kiss of Frostworm, you can bring Purification Light. The Tenacity Ball is what a lot of people call it. And play around these key elements. In PvE, I ideally want to do the all 4 skills, and on auto, you want to be looking like this. And the reason why it's set up like this is you always want to be using Cold Firebird as much as possible. You also ideally want it to be your first purple skill, because how it works is it makes it stronger, and the stronger Cold Firebird shoots out 2 more birds, which is going to do more damage as well as reduce their block by more. The secondary skill is just bigger and more damage. The 3rd skill is a second tornado that's going to be important later on, and the 4th skill does its regular thing, is a little bit wider, as well as leaves a damage over time strip afterwards. These can all be important depending on what you're doing, but for PvE, you're generally going to want to do Cold Firebird and then EM Chain Strike, the 4th skill, once you're able to do so. The reason being is Cold Firebird is going to come up more often, because once you use that purple version of the skill, it reduces its cooldown, and Cold Firebird already has a super low cooldown. So it's going to be Cold Firebird, generally 1, 2, 3, 4 in this order. And then it's time for the purple Cold Firebird, You throw out the purple one, your regular one's already up. Your next 2 regular ones are pretty much already up, and then you're 2 out of 4 towards your next one, which would be EM Chain Strike. Now, why you want to go for EM Chain Strike as the second one, as you see right here, does the damage when your break is higher than the block of the target, deal damage equal to up to 50% of the difference. EM Chain Strike is the same thing but leaves the damage over time. Your Cold Firebird reduces their block by 30%. This does also work against most bosses. Some just don't even have block. So against something like Guild Boss, you do the 1, 2, 3, 4, Cold Firebird, Cold Firebird, Cold Firebird, and then once you do the second one, EM Chain Strike, this is going to take their reduced block into account when you go to do EM Chain Strike. You do not, however, stack these. So Cold Firebird is not going to be reduces by 30%, another 30%, another 30%. It just refreshes. Whatever the highest one is you've done, that's the one that stays put, but you're keeping it up, and it's just hit, more damage all the time. When we're talking about PvP, as I said, my preferred method is Pious Light in the secondary slot and doing it just like this. In something like something like Top League, where you have that countdown timer beforehand, I like using Cold Firebird a couple times to prime it, prepare the Assaulting Hurricane Tornado so that it goes purple, which makes it wider, knocks them up. So if they're immune to knockback but not immune to knockups, you can hit them with the knockup, as well as it does a big tornado followed by a slightly smaller tornado right after. This puts them in a beautiful position for you to hit Purification of Light, Cold Firebird, EM Chain Strike, hopefully just dead at that point. But your teammates should know to play around it. You shouldn't just start it off, oh, I just threw out the tornado. That double tornado is one of the main reasons to bring Judge in PvP. Easier to play around with in group PvP, such as Guild War or things like this, where you can do this more often. You can prepare for things, and just the targeting aspect of Purification of Light, Assaulting Hurricane, and EM Chain Strike, allowing you to hit over walls and things in Guild War can be very, very beneficial. And if we're doing it like that, then I would, in PvP, look for... We're looking like this. And Tornado is going to be our biggest thing with us. We'll be talking about Fairies in a moment. Once we're done with this, we're going to go over to Priest, talk about their situations, and then talk about Fairies, Wills, and Generations. So moving on over to Priest, a lot of people just like to bring the base 4 skills, but there's like an offensive priest and a defensive priest. If you're doing a defensive priest where you're just trying to be helpful to the team, you just want to bring all 4 priest skills. You want to max out the buff passive as fast as possible, as well as the heal passive as fast as possible. Lowering the cooldown of your buff, giving you a chance to heal for quite a bit, 50% more for your heal, is great for your assist abilities. But your main thing you're going to be bringing to the table is cleanse, buff, heal, and reducing their tenacity. Now, if you're doing a offensive priest, where your main other class is a damage-based unit, and you're bringing this primarily for the crit and attack buff, then we're going to be looking for, move this around, buff Cold Firebird. This is generally how I like to put it. And then ideally it would be like this. So this is how I like it right here. So you start off with the buff. If it's something like Top League where it's the countdown, do it with 1 second left. That way, once you make that initial crash with the enemy team, most of the buff has already been gone, but that barrier and cleanse effect is still up. And then you're already, 4 or 5 seconds into the cooldown for your next priest buff. Then you have Cold Firebird to reduce their block. You have Purification of Light to reduce their tenacity. So you're doing more break, you're doing more crit, and then you have Thunder God to just do general good damage and good AoE. These are the two kind of main ways to use Priest. I don't really see a situation where you would bring Frostworm to it, unless you're trying to do specifically slow people down, but we don't have a big enough thing to really worry about that, and you should in general be able to kill people quick enough that this isn't an issue. Now let's talk about fairies and wills and things like that. So in PvP, holies are obviously going to be your best if you're able to do it to the highest that you can. It needs to be at least level 5 to get that great beneficial additional effect. And then generally I like to have my holies at 3 red or higher to really consider them useful. As you see, my mistletoe is the exception here because it allows me to go from 6 to 7. She is right at the cusp of red, so she's fine for now, but if there's something else I need, she would be the first one to go. Now for Judge, because you primarily are going for that break and just doing high damage, fire and wind are very, very good for Judge. Wind giving you that just a little bit of cooldown reduction to make your Cold Fire Birds effectively instantaneous, especially if you do the full rotation purple Cold Fire into regular Cold Fire. It's literally throw, just bombarding on people right from there. Fire is going to make you do more damage, give you a little bit more HP, things like this. And then when we're talking about PvP, as I said, Holy is the best. And then Wind is great if you're trying to use the Tornado more often. Be kind of like an assist for your team. Judge's main handicap is Priest is seen as better in a lot of cases because it brings more to the team. But that just having one person with that Tornado, double Tornado, or just having a cooldown on the Tornado to do it more often can be super beneficial to have one on the team. I also like to, if we're doing Top League, do one match as Judge to throw out the double tornado, and then swap to Priest for the second match because we have the countdown. You have time to change things, and so they're playing around the Judge tornado, and then I don't have to fight that way. You see what I mean? It's nice that you can always change. That's the downside and the upside of the Scholar class. Both sides are very, very good. Now for Priest, if you want to be a defensive one, you're looking for water. As you see right here, healing, protection rate, healing effect. So your heal is going to heal more over time, especially when you get that 50% proc to do more healing. If you're trying to be a brawler type where you do want to be tanky but also want to do a little bit of damage, Earth is going to be your go-to. But if you're a damage type where you're using Priest primarily for that crit buff, then you're obviously going to want to go for Fire for the crit rate, crit damage, block, ignore. Very, very good. That block, ignore also important for Judge when they do the EM chain strike. Last but not least, let's go over to the wills. You're going to want, for both sides, you're going to want at least 2 slaughters. Slaughter is just very, very powerful, especially if you are on fire or holy, because they're specialized and gain them low. And then Holy and Slaughter will track on top of each other, do a bunch of damage. If you are trying to be a tanky version, you definitely want to bring things like God Bless, or Rigidity. Sometimes you can even take both if your main thing is just stay alive. And if you're trying to do that kind of judge thing I was talking about before, your main thing you bring to the team is Cold Firebird, Tenacity Ball, Frostworm, and Tornado. Then you're also Nightmare is going to be very, very powerful for you. As far as the generations, if you're the crit side, you're going to want to bring all 4 Break Freeze, more crit rate, more crit damage. If you're trying to do tanky, then we can talk about, where's it at? God Bless Heal. This will help you with your healing as well as reduce their healing. And the idea with this is you always want to be basic attacking different people. You can have it on all people at the same time, but you want to keep attacking different people. You need to be changing your auto attack target for this to have the most effect. If you're trying to be that kind of CC bot, one that I talked about as a judge, then you're going to want to be going for Soul Hunt. Now, last, what classes go with this? Now, the interesting thing about Priest is it literally goes with anything. Goes with a ham sandwich and you can make it do something. Generally, in PvE, does best with Armor and Marksman. For PvP, we're doing really, really well with either the Lances or Gladiator is doing very well. Now, for Judge, the main thing I see to go with it is Wind Chaser, giving you that extra dodge, giving you that 2 more versions of CC to add to the table, giving you that cleanse so you can reposition a little bit better. Just as a perfect match for what that kind of judge is trying to do. Let me know what you guys think down below. Till next time, guys.